Welcome to the Human Factors and Ergonomics Hub, a series of educational podcasts that showcase the connection between human capabilities and good work design, brought to you by the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society of Australia. Hello everyone and welcome. Season's greetings to you all. I'm Sharon Todd and you're listening to the HFE Hub, where we chat about all things human factors and ergonomics. Today we're listening to Alison Heller-Ono talk to us about her work. She has a passion that runs deep and she's been studying the relationship between how people work and work injuries for over 3 decades. As a physical therapist in ergonomics, she has been consulting since 1993. So today, please welcome Alison Heller-Ono all the way from California. Well, I'm really excited to be chatting with Alison Heller-Ono today, who I met at the first Human Factors conference in Queensland, or not the very first one, but the most recent conference in Queensland in 24 in Brisbane. And then Alison joined us again in Launceston this year. Alison, it's so great to have you, and thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's so great to connect again, Sharon, with you and have those opportunities to meet you in Brisbane in 2024 and then see my dream come true of returning to Tasmania from America. You know, that's probably the furthest away I've been. So that was wonderful.
Well, it's probably about the furthest south you can get unless you're heading for the Antarctic or something. So that'll be next. Maybe we could do a conference there.
That'd be interesting.
That would be, wouldn't it? We'd be doing it in a Zodiac, I think, out in the middle of the water. So, Alison, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and your experience and journey into human factors and ergonomics.
Well, it's been just a delightful journey. My interest in HFE, human factors and ergonomics, really started over 35 years ago when I was studying to become a physical therapist, or physiotherapist, as you call it, in Australia. My research for my master's degree focused on industrial physical therapy. At the time, corporate wellness was really just starting. This is the late 80s. And the interest in industrial physical therapy was just starting as well. And I was very interested in getting people back to work and understanding what those kinds of injuries that were in the workplace. And I really didn't have much experience about it because I was still a student. But what I found in that research was the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is the statistical branch through the Department of Labor here in the U.S. that tracks work injuries. And I saw all the categories of different types of injuries and the high-risk groups. And this kind of fascinated me because I was already interested in helping people get, well after a work injury. And at the time, I didn't really know what ergonomics was. That was in the mid-'80s, between 85 and 87. But I knew what industrial physical therapy was. And so here in my early years, I was already interested in the study of how people work. It's just that no one had told me that that's kind of what ergonomics is, right? And so I didn't learn about it until after I graduated. And in the early 90s, I got a job working as an industrial work health clinic manager, doing functional capacity assessments, work capacity assessments, return to work programs with employees who had been injured. We used to call work hardening, work simulation. And during that time, I was living in California, and California was very progressive back in the late 80s, early 90s. They were the first state in the country to have been mandated to regulate an ergonomics regulation through a workers' comp reform. So I was already, in the realm of workers' comp. I was learning about work injuries and workers' comp as insurance and how it worked to help people get back to work. And so when the state began to talk about workers' comp reform, they built in the requirement that Cal-OSHA, the regulatory body of the federal agency, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, California has its own division, basically, that the state wanted Cal OSHA to develop prevention of repetitive motion injuries and a regulation. So this was the first, that was in the early 90s, and it took about 4 years to bring the regulation to fruition. It was called, 5110, Cal OSHA 5110 regulation for the prevention of repetitive motion injuries in the workplace. So California, it was a single page, and it really focused on it was reactive. It was a reactive standard that if a company or an employer had more than one repetitive motion injury within a 12-month period of time, that was due to about more than 50% of the tasks people were performing, and that it had been diagnosed by a physician, then they needed to implement the regulation. And so in the clinic, I heard about this regulation early on before it became official. One thing led to another in the sense that I realized that I could use my PT skills and knowledge to help prevent workplace injuries. And instead of helping one person at a time, I realized I could help a whole company of people at a time. And that really thrilled me. That really just, I had a couple of chances when I was in the clinic to go out and assess, do like a job analysis of some mushroom pickers, because I live in an agriculture-based community. And there was, people picking crops all around us, and saw the physical demands of that. And I realized that as a PT, I could serve my community better by helping to educate employers on how to prevent injuries and help employees to work safer and better. And that really showed me that employers and employees needed my help, and that I was in a position early on in this age of discovery of ergonomics, that, wow, this was like my calling. Right. And so that's kind of how I got into it. I retired from the clinic, essentially, and I began pursuing my career in ergonomics. And I launched my business, Worksite International, in 1993. Right now, in January will be my 33rd year in business.
Well done.
I can't believe that I've gone through 3 decades plus on this journey. It's just wonderful. And the funny thing is Sharon, is that things really don't change. Employers always need that help. There's new businesses who don't know anything about it. There's old businesses that just don't do it right. And people just keep getting hurt at work. As much as we try to prevent them, they still happen. And so they will inevitably continue to need our assistance, And that's why I'm still here, I think. Well, that's part of my success formula, is that problem just doesn't go away.
No, it doesn't. And one thing that you've mentioned amongst many great things in that conversation is that you stepped out of the clinic and into consultancy straight up. So I'm going to ask you a curly question. How did you launch your business, or how did you get started? Did you have an employer that took you on, or tell us about that?
Some of it was just intuitive. There was just a gut feeling. I had no business training. I'd never been a consultant, but I had an idea of how I wanted to serve people. And my first clients were in 2 different industries. One was in insurance. That from working in the clinic, I knew that the workers' comp adjuster, the insurance provider, paid for the medical care of the employee to get them back to their, pre-injury state. And I realized then that the science of ergonomics could help define what those exposures are. Why are you sending somebody back to work to the same environment in which their injury occurred without changing how they work? And that question to me was obvious. Well, you need my assistance to change how that person's going to work, to change the environment, to change their body mechanics, to improve the workplace and educate the employer and employees. So I went out to a few insurance providers locally who I'd seen these patients in the clinic and knew who their providers were. So I put 2 and 2 together and called those adjusters and said, hey, I have a service, ergonomic worksite analysis, that for workers' comp management, that will help basically create a plan of action for the employer, adjuster, physician, and employee to get back to work or to stay at work. And it worked. They bought into that. And I immediately started to make money from that service. And that is a keystone service for my business that I've been delivering for 33 years now, work comp ergonomic assessments for, workers' comp management. And it's a medical legal, service and has a really high value because no one can put that case together like an ergonomist or a PT ergonomist who understands functional capacity and physical demands and ergonomic risk exposures, the physical and the psychosocial, and document what those exposures are and how to mitigate them. And I found I was very successful at that. And obviously, that's why I still do it now to this day, help insurance providers, employers, and physicians with this type of service. And the second way was, again, I don't know how, maybe through I signed up I joined the local chamber of commerce, and I started to write a monthly article on workers' comp reform and what I understood about it and talking about ergonomics. And somehow I got connected to the local county government, the sheriff's department. And I met a key person there who was managing the human resources. And he was fantastic. He was Luther Hurt. I'll never forget him because he was instrumental. They had several claims of young women in administration who had repetitive motion injuries, who were out of work or had surgeries. And these claims were very costly for these young people. And he was very concerned about that. And somehow, I don't remember how I met him, but through those connections, probably locally. But I told him, look, California has a template. This was the RMI, the regulation, the 5110 reg. And there's a plan in it that if you do analyze the work, implement hazard solutions and control measures, and deliver training and education to employees, that it will help to mitigate these. And he really liked that idea. And since the state was pushing it through Cal OSHA, he was all on board with that. And that opened the door to my first contract to develop an ergonomics program for the sheriff's department, specifically as part of the county, and help drive down their costs and claims. And matter of fact, Sharon, after the first year of doing that, Luther and I went to the board hearings, Cal OSHA board hearings, and presented the results of our first year of implementing the proposed regulation to support the development and the approval of this regulation. So I was very instrumental back in my early days in helping to steer the Cal OSHA regulation in some small way. With my client. And matter of fact, I wound up having that contract with them for over 10 years. And it became the foundation of my first book, Your Guide to Developing an Ergonomics Process, and my first two white paper outcome papers on the role an ergonomics task force plays in mitigating claim avoidance and preventing work injuries, repetitive motion injuries. So, and that was, those papers I submitted them to the International Ergonomics Association and got accepted to speak in 1997 in Tampere, Finland, at the IEA there. And that was like in 4 years, this is what I had accomplished, my first 4 years in business. And what it told me was that there aren't a lot of boundaries on this ergonomics marketplace right now. And that as long as you understand the theory and practice, what is ergonomics and how to mitigate risk of force, repetition, posture, and the, context stress and et cetera, then, and you follow these guidances that exist in the research, that there was a lot of room for my experiences and my theory on how to prevent injuries. And what I realized too, I had been introduced to participatory ergonomics theory by Dr. Andy Amata and his book on participatory ergonomics. And I just totally read through that and embraced it and applied it in the work I was doing at the sheriff's department. Participatory ergonomics. And then I realized I learned from Hal Hendricks and Michelle Robertson and Dr. Amata, the theory of macroergonomics. And that what I was doing at the sheriff's departments was a macroergonomic systems approach. And it's uncanny how intuitive I was to see that there was a systems problem to these injuries, that they weren't just one-off injuries, and that you really needed to look upstream, that the way the workstations were being set up, the equipment they were buying, the chairs they were purchasing, the lack of education they were providing people, that all of this contributed to the resulting injuries. That was such an enlightening time for me, and I got wonderful validation from going to IEA in Finland in 1997, and I went again in 2001. I continued on this path to validate my theories and practices in developing what I call the Worksite International Ergonomics process model. I've been on that journey now for really 30 years, validating my work and developing it further, diving deeper, and it's been really wonderful.
Yes, and you've mentioned some great people. Anthony Amata, he was on part of a panel discussion about one of the IEA publications recently, which we've got on the HFE podcast. And I'm planning on talking with him again, actually, at the end of January, as it happens, to talk more about his experiences as well. So thank you for mentioning him. The systems thinking that you've discussed, and obviously we know that there's been a lot of work in this space recently. Over the years, you will have perfected or modified the way you work. Just tell us a little bit about how you mitigate risk now, and what changes you may have made to your practice over that period of time, if any, in fact.
It's kind of interesting too. I wanted to iterate, as I said, I went to IEA 97, then I went to the Human Factors in Sydney in 2001. That was my first time I came to Australia and presented my work on ergo process design and management. So it was, very fundamental at the time back then. And a real opportunity came up, for good and bad, in the sense that in the mid 2000s, there was an economic crash here around 2007, 2008, and my business was not doing that well. I had still been working with the sheriff for, like I said, 10 years. So that would have been around the 10th year. And that contract was waning, and other opportunities were slowing, and the cost of travel, gas was expensive. And I saw an ad, actually a friend of mine said, there's an ad to a help wanted position at the County of Monterey to become the ergonomics manager. Now, this was a unique opportunity to help control their claims and costs. And I had been working at the sheriff. I wrote my book, Your Guide to Developing an Ergonomics Process. It had been published by Taylor and Francis in 1999 or 2000. I had some solid white paper outcome studies that I presented at IEA in 97, 2001, I think 2000 and maybe 2006. I had this foundation and this theory, and they were looking for an ergonomics process someone to manage it, to develop and manage it. Since my business wasn't doing so great, I thought, well, I'll go and apply. And so I went with my book and, Your Guide to Developing an Ergonomics Process. And I went to the interview, and they literally said, we're looking for someone to help us with this. I said, well, I wrote the book on it. And of course I got the job, because there was no one better qualified in my community. I was the only board certified professional ergonomist in Monterey County. And I still remain to this day to be the only CPE professional here, wow. Which is great. Yeah. For that, for the community, that means that anybody else who comes in around here, when an employer says they've had somebody come, well, they're not the real thing, So, but anyway, so that opened the door to working. I downsized my business, and I went to work for the county, and I stayed for 7 years. And the value that provided I call it a petri dish and an open book to literally implement my theories and practices that I had done independently for different little companies over those last 10 or 15 years since I started my business. But now I would have a chance to do it for a large organization, over 4,000 computer users, about 1,000 non-computer using industrial types, hospital, public works, sheriff department, which I had been working in for 10 years, administration, risk, everything that a county offers, county government seat. And the wonderful thing was I would be the first ergonomics manager for any of the 54 counties in California. So again, here I have a chance to really prove the value of ergonomics and demonstrate how it can help with claim avoidance and, well-being, employee well-being. And that's what I did. I took the theories I developed in the first 10 to 12 years of my business, and I licensed them to the county, my work, because I wanted to bring it with me. But I couldn't sell it to them because I was an employee, but I could license it to them. And I did that, and with the help of my intellectual property attorney. And it was a really smart move on my end, because in that agreement, I made it so that any data that I developed, I would be able to use to help further my goals in documenting the value of an ergonomics process. So for
I was just going to bounce in there before you go somewhere else for a second, was just tell us some of the things that are in that process. You've obviously talked about analysis and obviously a few other things. Just tell us.
Sure. It's based on a macro, socio-technical systems approach, and basically, and participatory ergonomics. So it said that the end user had to ask for the evaluation. We needed a way to market to them to understand what ergonomics was, and that there was help available to them if they had early symptoms, or they had just moved to a new location, or they were a new hire. And so the process began with the employee requesting assistance. And I developed a form, and that form said, why do you need, why are you looking for assistance? I'm a new hire. There was like 7 or 8 different reasons. New hire, safety concern, early symptoms, progressive symptoms, chair assessment, workers' comp, non-occupational medical, relocation. Those were the primary reasons. So I began to, we built the process on that. We built it on the framework of the 5110 regulation. Ergonomic analysis, hazard prevention and control measures, training and education, and then also and getting people to engage through participation, and had to slowly just market that out to the departments and get employees to buy in. And sure enough, it started to work. And the first year we probably, this is written up in my I did a 5-year outcome study before I left the county, because I stayed about 7 years. And I tracked my data for 5. And so it shows year over year the increase in value that this program provided. And eventually it wound up saving the county like $15 million in claim avoidance, an average of $3 million a year, or at a cost of about $650 a person over time. So the mitigation, the ROI was really high. But just to go back, the main thing is just ask for assistance. Use this form. Get your ask for the ergonomic assessment. Have it scheduled. Then part of it was to do a self-assessment and to participate in training when they could. And back then we did mostly live training. We had some e-learning, but it wasn't great. And so employees had to, if you were going to have an eval, you had to go to training. If we had a self-assessment, you had to do it before you had your eval. And then you had to do it after to show that you felt better. We had a loaner program of tools and equipment. I did chair assessments. Matter of fact, over the 5 years or 6 years or so that I was running this program, I would do chair fittings. What I found was this leads into another one of the things that we've developed, our chair assessment system, which I just spoke about at the Launceston conference, that chairs are foundational to seated work. I realized that a long time ago, but having this petri dish of 4,000 computer users validated it that the chairs were a part of the problem, but they're also part of the solution. And I had to find a way to convince management that the chairs that the county had were old and contributing to the claims that people were experiencing and that they needed to buy new ones. They hadn't bought new chairs in a long time, and the ergonomics of chair science had changed a lot. And so I began to, they gave me permission to start doing chair assessments and chair fittings. And I developed this chair assessment system for chair asset management. And that's a whole nother ballgame there that now it began as like just a short Excel program. And now it's a cloud-based system. So the other thing that came out of managing this process for the county was I developed an Excel program for the managing all the cases that came to me and tracking them through from the time of request to the time of implementation to the time of case closure. So I had this huge spreadsheet, and I hated Excel. I called it spreadsheet hell. And so after I left the county, then I realized this was a really valuable tool for me. It's got to be valuable for other people. And so I started to offer it as part of our, we have an academy, which we haven't talked about yet. But so I developed these two softwares now. I have the Ergo Case Tracker, which is cloud-based tracking. It's the metrics tracker and process tracker for every case that you have in your company, from the time of request to the time of closure. And it tracks the investments made very simply. What's the cost of the case, the eval, the cost of the purchases, cost of training. Those are your program costs, and divided by, that on the top is claim avoidance formula based on Pareto analysis. So I won't go into much detail on that, but the metrics tracker, which we refer to as Ergo Case Tracker, helps you to calculate this automatically. If you know your workers' comp costs and you know the number, it tracks the number of cases you're managing proactively, it'll develop this. It has a formula for you. So the work at the county was instrumental in really just validating the earlier work that I did. I couldn't have gotten to where I am now without that happening, Before I developed it, I launched the Worksite International Ergonomics Training Academy in 2018. And the way I got to it was that I had always been doing ergonomics training, short courses for employees, but I also had what's called the Train the Evaluator course from 1993. That was the first time I did it with the Sheriff's Department to teach them how to do ergonomic assessments. So the whole model is based on developing in-house expertise, having a team of people who understand the ergo process, from facilities and purchasing and IT, and then the ergo specialists to evaluate employees. So I had this Train the Evaluator course, and I did it over and over for many years, and along with several other courses that were very popular to teach live in, between 1993 and before e-learning really developed. So I learned about e-learning probably in 2016, 2017, and I took some courses on digital course design and how to build an e-learning course, because I had this legacy. I had all these courses that were very popular. They were successful. People learned from them. They liked them. And I was like, I need to put this legacy into something more accessible. And that's where I learned about e-learning. And so I launched the Academy after going through several courses, the course design formula and stuff, and realizing what you teach live, you have to teach differently, especially for adults. So there's a science behind that and a process. So once I mastered that, I launched my academy, Worksite International Ergonomics Training Academy, and I decided to offer both corporate and professional courses. So the corporate side is e-learning for employees, short courses under an hour that are the whole premise of the academy is guided practice leading to independent performance. And that is based on the theories from Rebecca Cuevas on course design formula. She has a wonderful book on how to go from live to digital and get engagement and transformation, most importantly, which was very important to me. If I'm going to teach people online, I need to see that they understand the theory and practices and methods I'm teaching and can demonstrate that value so that I can, for the professional side, give them a credential, and for the corporate side, ensure that they can now have now demonstrate better self-care, self-awareness, safe work practices. Those are my, the goals of the corporate courses. For the professional side, I took my three favorite things, actually two, and then the third came later. The Train the Evaluator course, I relaunched it as Certified Office Ergonomics Specialist. And I also, from my understanding and learnings from the county along with chairs, the science of sitting, chair assessment, selection, and fit, from assessing all those people at the county, and as well prior to that, I launched the course Certified Chair Assessment Specialist. And to this day, there is no one that teaches the science of sitting, chair assessment, selection, and fit. It's a wonderful program because I'm bringing an ergonomist perspective, PT ergonomist perspective to the science of sitting and chair design impact and so many other things of what I've learned over the years about chairs, and I'm very passionate about it. And the third course came during the pandemic, Certified Remote Ergonomic Specialist, where people had to be able to do evals without having to go on site. And so all of these three professional courses, two are credentialed. The COESP, Certified Office Ergonomic Specialist course, is credentialed by the California Physical Therapy Association for 32 hours. The Chair Assessment Specialist course was accredited by the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors in England. That is a 16-hour course. And then the remote has not been accredited. It's just a methodology on how to do things remotely. Now, all three of our courses include a different aspect of the Worksite International ergonomics process. So the forms and tools that I used over the last 25 years, I put into the academy. Each of the courses has a different set or a different system. We call it the WISE system, Worksite International System of Ergonomic Evaluation forms and tools. So if you're learning office ergonomics, you want to be a specialist in office ergonomics, you get a certain set of forms and tools, including the Ergo Case Tracker, which is a software I mentioned that I use to track my cases at the county. Now this is cloud-based. So you get the WISE system of forms and tools, and you get the software. You can track your first 10 cases. And then also on top of that is that you get the value of me being your coach and mentor for the duration. It's 12-month enrollment in the academy. If you don't finish, then you renew. You have all the professional courses require annual renewal or lifetime renewal. The CASP is also a different set of forms and tools based on the science of sitting, doing a chair assessment and a chair fitting, and then coaching and mentoring with me to ensure that you transform to achieve your goals. And the remote is the same thing. You get the tools you need for performing remote evaluation. So each of the courses has its own set of specific forms and tools, and all of these have been validated and peer reviewed and presented. So that's another thing about ergonomics is, there's the academic side of these assessment tools like Rula and Reba and things like that. But there's also forms that people need that those tools they only give you a small part of what you're looking at. You need to present the story of that employee to the employer or whoever's reviewing it and going to decide on implementation. And so our forms and tools are templates that guide you through your assessment, looking at posture and positioning and risk, exposure, et cetera. And I've really taken all the theories and practices that I've learned over the years and put them into the WISE systems that come with each of the courses. And along with the coaching and mentoring, it just makes the academy very unique in the ergonomics training marketplace. So these are private credentials. And people often ask, well, are they valid? Will it be recognized in the marketplace? The only way it achieves recognition is that you use it after your name. I've done my due diligence. I've gone to the Board of Certified Professional Ergonomists to justify my work. I've researched the academic and the private label credentialed courses, certificate courses versus certification by the Board of Certified Professional Ergonomists or the Association for Canadian Ergonomists. Those are nonprofit board credentials. those are certification processes where you bring your knowledge and skills and you present it and you sit for an exam and you get your credential. Whereas the private label, you're actually taught by someone in that, training program, and you receive a certificate that you understand you've achieved the goals of that course. So I've done my due diligence in saying our academy, in the scheme of things, in that ergo training marketplace, looked at other courses and the national and international credentialing, and I figured out where does Worksite International's academy fit in. And so when you earn a credential from us, you're demonstrating that you are proficient in the Worksite International methods and practices that were taught in the class. And so you can't call yourself an ergonomist. You are Certified Office Ergonomics Specialist using the Worksite International way or methodology, or you're the Chair Assessment Specialist using the Worksite International Chair Assessment System. Again, for the remote, you're Certified Remote Ergonomics Specialist using the Worksite International system of remote evaluations.
Obviously, they're for people in organisations who want to become certified to then be able to roll out those systems in their workplaces. Can other professionals tap into your resources to use them to assist in their practice? You know how often we need to set up something for someone and you don't want to reinvent the wheel. Can we use those systems that you have?
So they're only available if you're an academy, if you sign up for the course and you're an academy member. So right now they're not open source, and the software too, you can purchase a license to use software. If you wanted to use the system separately and you're already skilled and you wanted to see them, you just have to reach out to me. I'm sure I'd be able to, we could talk about it, I'm open to anything. But the whole point is to have, so anyone who's credentialed now, since we've been running these programs since 2018, I have I'd say we have a graduation success rate of about 40%. It's actually pretty high. And we have a lot of people that have become lifetime members of the academy. And once you graduate, you are part of the WI network of Certified Ergonomic Specialists. So whenever I have a national and international project where I need help, I rely on my network of people who are trained in the same way. We're delivering a consistent and valid approach. And so I want those people, if they are not working for a company and they work for themselves, then they have an opportunity to get work alongside me or support me in a subcontract opportunity. So it's really wonderful to see the ones that are on the consulting side, like a PT who started her own ergonomic service line, or someone who left a company who wanted to start their own business. I have people like that, risk managers who have left who wanted to launch. And now they are part of the network, and if they're local in the Bay Area, they can support me in delivering services around where I live, further north, et cetera, or internationally. We have students in Thailand who have finished our courses. We have people in Hong Kong who have finished. We have people in Romania. So it's really been a wonderful international journey. I have a student in Australia who's working on her COESP for several years. And what I find is that people they're not just quitting. They continue on this journey, because some people who work full time can't complete it in the 16 weeks that we suggest it be completed in. They just can't, make the time for the e-learning and to do the assignment. It takes much longer, like one module every 2 months or something. So the COESP is the flagship course, and that takes about, for some people, it's supposed to be 4 to 5 month journey. But for some, it's, 8 months to a year, or 1 to 2 years, or even 2 to 3. So as long as you're just renew it, you have access to your course, you have access to me, access to what we have, the network, as well as we have another program called the Worksite International Network Membership Program. And that's where we invite national and international speakers, experts, to speak for our students and guests. So we've had several people from Australia. Sarah Pizzell has spoken. We have Hillevi Hempfla from Nordic Ergonomic Society up in Sweden. She's a vision ergonomist expert. We have over 50 expert lectures now for the last 5 years as a benefit of the WI Network Ergonomics Training Academy. So I know I've put a lot into this, but there's so much value in what we're offering and unique in the ergonomics training marketplace. So it's a place you can come to grow and learn, ask questions, learn from others, learn from me, and have all the resources you need. And so this is things that took me 33 years to do and validate. Now you can pay one price and have access to that, So I'm really proud of that. That's probably my biggest achievement.
That's a huge achievement. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced?
Well, there's only one of me to do all that. That is the biggest challenge. I guess, at least I've had a lot of time to do it. I've needed it, but it can, I'm not the best at delegating. I'm working on that. But I used to have employees because of financial reasons, couldn't afford to pay payroll and didn't have enough work. I always had enough work for myself, and I just couldn't necessarily get enough work for everybody. And this model now with the network and using subcontractors who are certified under me is ideal. Now I have people who can help me when I need it. But the biggest challenge really is to be the developer of all these things, to manage it all. On any given day, I might be interviewing a student for their midway, a milestone completion of maybe they're halfway through their course. And then I might have a new client meeting, and then I might have to go out on site and do an assessment for a workers' comp case in the afternoon, and then come back and maybe I have to write a proposal or a blog or a newsletter, So I'm better at it all. I'm much better at it now because I've developed it all, and it's really, really now in a higher level of iteration than it used to be. And refinement. So, and also I have a digital marketing manager who helps me about 24 hours a week, and he's great. He's been with me for almost 4 years. And so now he does a lot of the marketing, but I'm still responsible for all the sales. And I have a virtual assistant, VA, who helps type my reports and helps me with the academy coordination. She's like the academy coordinator for the professional enrollments. So she keeps track of all the students, helps them with enrollment and when they need to renew, and touch base with them along with myself. I'm very hands-on this business, if you couldn't tell. Very hands-on. Anyone who comes into my network, I just want them to stay. I want to be able to learn, teach, give them what I know, and guide them, because people like myself, having been 3.5 decades in this and successfully growing it from a seed, from my own intuition and from what the people that have come before me, who I've learned from, who I've had the grace to see understand what they were saying, and then apply it in my own unique way, and then to produce it so that others can use what I've done without having to recreate the wheel. It's just a wonderful place to be.
I imagine there's been a lot of learnings through this project, through this career, really. So what are some of the learnings that have stood out for you?
Long ago, I read 2 books, and I had no idea what they were going to mean to me. But now, hearing my story, the first was called Good to Great by James Collins, and the other was Built to Last by James Collins and Jerry Porras. And I read these in the late 90s. And it's about turning an average company into an exceptional one and making it last for years to come. And in both of those books, it gives examples of companies that have survived for, 100 years, 150 years, and what their secrets to success are, what makes them good, go from good to great. And, after I read those, I've done over the years a lot of professional development, because I wasn't intuitively a consultant, as I mentioned early on, you asked. I was a PT. I took care of people. I didn't really know anything about how to structure a business or how to deliver services. And so a lot of it was innate, but there are methods to be successful. And I had to learn how to sell. I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know how to market. I didn't know how to write content or explain what I was going to do in a way that made people want to buy it or invest. I didn't know how to write a proposal or none of that, and so I have invested in other people mentoring me over the years and guide, business mentors to help develop my vision and my mission to be clear. And really those first early 10 years was great foundation. But by the time I got to 2000, that's when I really developed the concept of the Worksite International network of certified ergonomic specialists. And I used to do live events. I used to take it like a dog and pony show and go out and do a 2 or 3 day course live with like 20 students or 8 students in a variety of places around the country. But that model didn't work. It was exhausting and it had very low profit margin, if any. The bottom line was I had this vision to develop this network, and it took a long time. I had a lot of mistakes. I spent a lot of money on myself, and and to learn from those mistakes. But what happened was after that, job at the county to validate my work, and then the age of the digital revolution of social media and e-learning, that gave me the chance to take all my prior learnings and put it into the academy and recognize the value of the Excel programs that I had developed, the Ergo Process Tracker, Ergo Case Tracker, and the Chair Assessment System. And having now realized, look, they're not working in Excel anymore, but I have enough money now I can build. I can hire some developers and get into, develop these programs into cloud-based software. So everything has really been there for a reason. The lessons learned. I never gave up on myself. I never gave up on my vision. I always believed that what I was doing was right and that no one was going to tell me I couldn't do it other than myself. And I believed in it. And so here I am now. I'm living it to the fullest. And I really feel like I have built something that now is great. That's lasted 33 years for me. So
congratulations. So the next question then is, what's next, Alison?
It's a hard question because I feel like I have all the pieces in place now. And I want to see more people joining our academy. It is a higher price point than most people pay for continuing ed, but you get so much more. And so it could, on one hand, it controls the number of people that come in. Like I don't have 1,000 students. I couldn't do that, right? I have between, 15 and 20, 25 active students a year. And like I said, a lot of them don't finish the first year. So I'm still mentoring people from 2 and 3 years ago, encouraging them to just do a little bit at a time and keep at it. So I want to see more people joining our academy, using our systems and the software successfully, because the software, you can buy it outside of the academy. You can get that. I'd love to see more people using the chair assessment system, the chair asset inventory process. I think it's highly valuable for employers. I eventually want to retire, although my husband tells me, you'll never retire. You love what you do too much. And I'm like, no, I will,
Just look out.
I swear I will. But much of what I offer now can be done remotely and online. So I can keep at it for a long time. I can continue to mentor, coach my students, or, people that are building an ergonomics business. I do coaching and mentoring for Ergo Business Mentorship. So, why not? That's the thing. I think that people are reluctant to invest in themselves. And I've spent thousands of dollars. During the pandemic, I spent probably over $40,000 on mentoring to learn marketing and sales processes to get them to be better than what they were in the age of digital. You have to do it if you want to grow and you want to become a success and you want to stand out in the market. all that pays off. So I'm at a really good place. I have a lot of energy still, which is good because I am getting older. But I need to push out to my network more. I need to share, not take on all the work that I always have. And that's a big thing for me, is to let go and give it to somebody else. And I'm really working on that, to share and trust that those people did learn from me and will apply and know what they're doing, and believing in them as well. So I feel like that that's what's next, is to really engage my network. If I can get the work that I can share with them, and continue to develop my software to be better than it is now, and be able to sell it and keep doing this for as long as I can. The remote aspect is great because then I can continue to do the things I love, like traveling the world and meeting people like you and your colleagues in Australia. Was, one of the most wonderful experiences I've had in the last 10 years was just all the international trips that I've done and the validation. It's great. So as far as what's ahead, that's all I can look to for 2026 right now, is really make that first big software sale. Software as a service is a big challenge, and I'll feel much better if I can do that.
I think it's a great place to stop. Thanks for joining us at the Human Factors and Ergonomics Hub, brought to you by the Human Factors and Ergonomics Society of Australia, where human-centred design really matters. If you like this podcast, make us your favourite in your podcast app. We look forward to chatting with you next time.